Hello! So today we're having a look at the BAe 146, which was updated yesterday. This has been my first opportunity to really have a look at it. And we're going to do a short flight from Queenstown, southwest of New Zealand, over to Mount Cook. And the reason for choosing this route is purely because this aeroplane has got Mount Cook Airline written on it. So I thought it might be quite the nice challenge to do, especially as given Mount Cook is such a short runway. It's only 5,000 feet, just under 5,000 feet long. So Queenstown runway is 6,000 feet long, and I bet we're going to have trouble getting off the ground here, because the BAe 146 doesn't come off the ground easily. Okay, let's go and jump inside the aeroplane. So what do we need to do to start up the 146? I'm going to follow the checklist that I followed in the past, just to see if there's anything that's really changed. I've read through the notes with the aeroplane. There's a lot of small changes around it to do with 3D structures and some of the details around the flashing sequences of lights. This is the level of detail it's now got to with this aeroplane, is that obviously some of the more eagle-eyed enthusiasts had pointed out to JustFlight, or the developers behind the BAe 146, that the flashing sequences of some of the lights wasn't quite right. So that's next level. Okay, so control 7. Batteries 1 and 2 need to go to on, so they are there. Control 8, further overhead. We turn the nav light to high int, so that's over here. That's high intensity. No smoking sign goes to auto. Cabin emergency goes to armed, which is the middle setting. On the far left, yaw damper master 1 and 2 go to on, AP master goes to on, avionics masters A and B go to on. Anti-skid and lift spoilers, anti-skid goes to on, and lift spoilers yellow and green go to on. Then further down, the electrical section in the second column, bus, tie, AC and DC goes to auto. And the standby inverters and standby generators are armed. The APU generator goes to on, which is 2 clicks on it. Then on the fuel section over here, the left inner pump needs to go to on. Then the APU master can go to start, and the needle will immediately whiz round, and you can see the turbine gas temperature of the APU increasing. So if we go and look outside and whiz around the back of the aeroplane, we'll start to see heat pouring out of the APU exhaust. Okay, so when that gets up to 100, you'll see the APU power available light illuminate, and then we can get on with the rest of the startup procedure. As I said, I'll try to remember to put a link to my procedure in the notes. There we go. So, lower panel, flight deck emergency lights need to go to armed. Then we go to control and 4, turn the yaw dampers on, so you click on the button for it and it will illuminate, there it goes. Then the left and right side panels of the cockpit, we arm the oxygen system for the pilot and the co-pilot, so we'll just scoot around the co-pilot here. So then control 7 takes us back overhead. Fuel tank transfer goes to auto. Then ice protection, the ice detect needs to go to on, and then recover it. Then main panel, control 3. We click on the flip chart, which will move all of the bugs. Depending on the aircraft loadout, it will move basically your rotate speed, things like that. And flight directors goes to on, so we press F and then we can click on the flight director bars on each side, and you can see them come alive on the attitude indicators. We go and switch on the nav instruments. We're not actually going to be using nav today, we're going to be using GPS for a change, but we'll turn the nav radios on anyway, just in case, you never know. And then front pedestal, control 5, we go and turn the comm radios on. And now we're going to go and program the FMC. So this is a retrofitted FMC or flight management computer in the 146. It's not the accurate one for the aircraft at all. I think it's kind of about 50% of the one that's in the Cessna CJ4. So if we go position initialization, none of this actually works. If we go to flight plan, we can put in our ICAO code of our departure airfield. Sorry. So NZQN is Queenstown. NZQN goes into the origin, and we're flying to Mount Cook, which is NZMC. November, Zulu, Mike, Charlie. Okay, so we've got the basics of the route in. Notice there isn't much else to do in here, so we can go into departures. We can say we're going to be leaving on runway 05, doing the ANPO 3A standard instrument departure. So 5 and ANPO 3A. We'll go and have a look at it in a moment in LittleNavMap just to show you it, because it's an interesting one. And then when we arrive at Mount Cook, notice there are no stars, so we're going to be arriving on runway 31. We'll execute that. So if we then go and look at the legs page and go next page, you'll see once we get to ANPOV, which is the end of the standard instrument departure, we've got a discontinuity. So let's go and have that look at the map that we talked about. So we go and make sure this is all correct. Okay, so notice we are going to do a loop of the airfield basically before we depart. That's the only reason I'm doing it, is because it looked interesting. But notice that you have to stay below 160 knots. That's going to be an issue for us, because look, we have to stay above about 145 and below 160. It's an incredibly narrow window to, a needle to thread. So we'll see how we get on with doing that. I can't guarantee I'm going to do it first time, because I haven't flown the BAe 146 for ages. But we've got some waypoints to put in first. So Tim Joe is the first one. So TIMJO. So we drop that onto the discontinuity. And then we go next page. And notice in this FMC it doesn't push the discontinuity on. It's actually tidied it up. So Charlie Sierra Hotel Echo Sierra. So Charlie Sierra Echo Hotel Sierra. So we drop that on top of there, and it should push it forwards, and it hasn't. It's done a clear, which was interesting. Previous. It's had a bit of a meltdown, hasn't it? So let's try that again. So we want Tim Joe first. TIMJO. It's not without its bugs, I think you could say. So we execute that. Next, let's try that again. CSHES. CSHES. Try and put it down on top of there again. And it's worked this time. Okay. I'm sure I did it correctly the first time, but there we go. Okay. So we have programmed the FMC, and there's really not much else to do in here, because it's not the full implementation, and we do need then to go and flick this little yellow switch here to RNAV, which means the autopilot will then use the GPS instead of the nav radios. But also we have to remember, because of that, the HSIs are not going to work. So if you try and turn the courses, they're not going to do anything to the needles on the HSIs, because this is set to RNAV, which basically means GPS navigation. Okay. So we will go and set our target altitude though, so we're going to go for 10,000 feet on our climb out, and we'll arm that immediately so we don't forget. We'll also go and set the heading bug for 50 degrees, so heading bug's on the opposite side of the HSI at the moment, so we're just watching this little bug over here as we spin this round. That's 53 degrees I think is the actual runway direction, so there we go. Okay, I think we're more or less there. So we press B to calibrate the altimeters. So then go Control 7 to go overhead. Fasten seatbelt sign goes to on. Turn the beacon lights to on, so control and 8 to do that. So beacon light basically informs the ground crew we're about to start the engines, and we can do the pushback at this point. Now, this does have pushback in the tablet, but it's not the most reliable thing in the world, so we'll remove the chocks and we'll try it. We'll just do a straight pushback. So we'll connect it to the aeroplane. Now, if it still behaves the way it used to, the nose will slowly raise into the air. So we'll go full speed ahead, or behind even. Yeah, look. Let's watch the nose. I think you can see it animating already. Yeah, the nose is coming up. I'm not quite sure why it does it. Oh, I've just figured out. Yeah, it's a bit of a bug. So we're going to turn that down a bit. It is a bug. If you have the wheel brakes on, yeah, we've gone onto the grass, look. So we will stop that pushback. And the nose was still in the air even then, look. So it was still doing it. So it's a bit of a bug in the pushback. It doesn't really work very well. So we're just gonna... Gosh, can we push ourselves forwards? Push ourselves back off the grass. So if we reconnect... It's an interesting one, isn't it? So we could go... But I think the nose is still coming up as we're doing it, which is a bit of a shame. So then cancel that push. And put my toe brakes back on. So essentially your parking brake on your controller is activating the toe brakes. Okay, so we're going to start the engines. Control 7. Turn the fuel pumps all to on. We turn the start master switch to on, we select the engine we want to start, and we hit the start button. And we come down into the cockpit and we can watch the N1 number for engine number 4 in this case. Once it gets to 10%, we can scoot across the cockpit and we can flick the start switch for engine number 4. And it will get to about 25 and then suddenly accelerate. Or maybe 30, famous last words, there we go. Then the turbine gas temperature will increase and the N2 number will come up. So once the ignition sequence is done for engine number 4, all the lights will go out and we can change the selector to engine number 3 and start again. And we just repeat that for each engine in turn. It's very straightforward. There we go. So select engine number 3. Start. All the lights come on, so the ignition system is kicked in. So we're waiting for 10% again. So let's go and scoot back over here. Whoops, can we see both? Just about. So, engine number 3. So remember, it gets to about 30 and it will suddenly accelerate. There we go. Turbine gas temperature comes up. Wait for the lights to go out. Then move the selector to the next engine, hit the starter, watching the N1 for it to come back through 10%. And then flick the start switch. It would accelerate at about 30%. Go. Turbine gas temperature should increase. There it goes, and the N1 speed increases. That's the turbofan, by the way. So this is these are the gas turbines. These are the turbofan speeds. You've obviously got fuel flow as well down the bottom. Okay, waiting for the lights to go out. Engine number 1. Start the engine. You'll notice the lights on the warning panel go out one after another as we configure systems around the aeroplane. So we're just waiting for the lights to go out for engine number 1. And once they have all gone out, we can move the selector back to off. So just hang on for a second for that to happen. Did I do that? Oh no, I didn't. There we go. That's why it didn't happen. The electric motor was busy spinning the engine up ever faster, but we hadn't actually flicked the start switch, so no fuel was going in and no ignition had happened. So the ignition system was busy waiting for us to command the ignition. There it goes. So the selector can go to off, start master can go to off, and then we can go and turn the generators on. So they are, let's press Control 7 so you can get a good appreciation of where things are. So there's the generators 1 and 4. Packs 1 and 2 can go to on, but they will show lights until we turn the air on for the 4 engines. So this is the environmental control system over here. So brake fans can go to auto, so we press Control 8 to get to them, and they're up here. Then hydraulics, pump 2 and 3, on engines 2 and 3 can come on. Ice protection, all heaters can go to on, so Control 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are basically ready to taxi at this point, so we go and check the lights. So if we go overhead, we're going to turn strobes on now just to save time, a little bit of time later, and we'll turn the landing lights on now as well while we're here. I mean, there's nothing around, so we're not going to blind anybody. So come off the parking brakes, set the flaps for takeoff. We'll go and set lateral navigation on the autopilot, pre-select it. So all we need to worry about when we engage the autopilot is setting the vertical speed. Now in the real aircraft, the master switch for the autopilot is on the yoke. Yeah, you can see it here. So I'm going to use a key, I'm going to use Z or Z on the keyboard to enable the autopilot, or engage the autopilot I should say. So remember, we are going to be playing games with getting above 140 knots but staying below 160 knots on the climb out, which is going to be fun. Also, we are going to backtrack on the runway because it's not the longest runway here and we're going to need all of it. The 146 isn't great at getting off the ground on short runways, but it's good at landing on short runways. So there's a bit of a steep incline here onto the taxiway, you can see, so expect the nose to suddenly lift. Whoa! Need a bit of a run up on that one, don't you? So while we're taxiing, we'll also go and switch on the thrust modulation system. We'll also switch the RNAV on the co-pilot side. We'll just put the engines into sync mode for the moment. We'll go for takeoff mode when we have turned round at the end of the runway. Don't actually need the tablet in the way, so if we click the little pad down here it will go away. So we've got 140 knots for a rotate speed, which seems a bit fast, but we'll see how we go. We'll also have a look at that map, so before we actually get going, just to refresh our memory of what we're going to be doing. Essentially flying a loop, a left-hand circuit. Ease the steering. The 146 is very, very good at turning on the ground. Okay, put the brakes on for a moment. So let's go and have a look at where we are. So we are going to take off, and we'll have a few seconds in a straight line to get the aeroplane stabilised and get it on lateral navigation for the autopilot and set our vertical speed, because remember, we don't have automatic throttles in this. So our only real method of controlling, well, we do have an IAS speed mode actually, but we'll go for vertical speed mode just because it gives us more to do. Okay. So, did we calibrate the altimeters? Yes, we did. We've set the thrust modulation system. What messages have we got down here? Flight recorder is off, that's fine. Just double checking that we've not missed anything too obvious. Ah, the weather radar. This is the new toy. So, should we go and switch it on now? So, I think it's WX. So, let's see what happens. Warming up. Wonder how long it takes. Stab, I wonder what that does. We apparently have a weather radar. Obviously there's not much weather for it to see, but we'll leave it running and see if it comes up with anything interesting during the flight. Okay, so I'm just going to set my view so we can see everything. Come off the brakes. I'm going to hold it on the toe brakes. Takeoff mode, release the toe brakes. We're going to need all of the runway. This is why I'm doing this. Notice we have no visual view of the flight plan in the 146, so there's a certain element of trust we're putting in LNAV. LNAV?
80 knots cross-checked.
It's a bit twitchy on the nose wheel. It's wandering.
V1. Rotate. V2.
Gear up. So we're up near 160 knots already. So we're going to just trying to trim it. So autopilot on. Vertical speed mode. And now we're going to regulate the throttle by hand, basically. So we're right on the limit of stalling, so I'm going to dip the nose a little bit, back down to 10 degrees.
V2 plus 10, safe flight speed, select
On LNAV. Okay, so I think we'll go around the edge of the hill. We'll probably get a warning about ground proximity. So we're just coming up to 160 knots, we have to stay below it. So we're going to go for sync mode now. See, look, it's dangerous, isn't it? The airplane doesn't like doing this, and that's disabled the autopilot. So this particular approach, we're going to do it faster than it wants to. This particular route doesn't like going this, well, it wants to go slower than this airplane can go. So we're going to fly at 180 knots. Just outside of the envelope of the aeroplane. It's quite amusing, really. So let's go back to vertical speed mode. Obviously when we engage the autopilot it just holds the pitch. So it's maintaining about 1,000 feet a minute, which is good on the vertical speed. We just say we're keeping a healthy distance above 160 knots basically. So if we go and have a look at that, what that caused. So yeah, where we got the stall look, it didn't hold that turn look, it turned early. It's interesting. It's not the best at following the flight plan. I think that's the one thing that lets this aeroplane down a little bit, is it can't follow GPS plans very accurately. So let's turn on the head tracking and we get to watch some of this amazing scenery. Obviously we need to keep an eye on that speed the entire time. It's incredible here though, isn't it? The scenery is amazing. So we're still climbing just under 1,000 feet a minute. We're on vertical speed mode. So we should do another U-turn any moment. And here it goes, look, the flight director's kicking off to the left and it's stalled again. Yeah, we just got too close to 160 knots again, look. Let's go LNAV. Vertical speed. So I'm to be really careful about keeping that above 160. It really doesn't like it. And yet that particular departure, until we're heading that direction, we're supposed to be staying below 160. We could maybe have done it with full flaps. So that also disengaged the target for 10,000 as well. So we're just doing a few checks around to make sure we're good. We should be heading off that way, I think. Yeah, it's just catching back up with the plan. So if you have a look, straighten up and head out over here. So we want to be below 12,000 feet, which is good. So we're just coming up through 7, continuing to climb. Obviously the speed restriction is not there anymore, so we can climb as we need to. No warnings. It's looking a lot better. So, if we go and have a look at Navigraph and go and look at the information for Queenstown, does this give us a transition? Altitude. Can't see anything obvious on this diagram. What about the departure diagram? 13,000 feet. We're not going to get to 13,000 feet. So we can just climb out on the plan we're on. We're looking good. So we're coming up to 250 knots though, so we do need to start regulating the throttle to not exceed 250 knots. This sounds very loud in my ears. I'm hoping you can hear me over the top of it. But yeah, I'm going to turn the airplane down a bit. Would you like to see it from outside? just below 250 knots, so let's increase the throttle slightly. See, when we were talking about IAS earlier, you can use this knob here to move the marker. So you can have the aeroplane target and airspeed for climb out, and it will maintain the speed and move the pitch to match. So you use the throttles basically at that point to control climb rate. It's a stunning view, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Never grow tired of this simulator. I might have to take a screenshot of that. I'll probably end up as the picture on the picture on the video in YouTube. Okay, it's shut down to about 500 feet a minute now. It is easing off as it approaches. The klaxon you heard was within 1,000 feet of the target altitude. Right turn. Let's go and have a look at the map, see what's going on. There we go, we're at Anpov, and we are now heading off across towards the lowlands and then the route into Mount Cook. So we'll start descending. We'll go manual at CS, HES, and we'll start descending down into Mount Cook and do everything visually. This aeroplane does look amazing, doesn't it? It's quite stunning, really. JustFlight have done an amazing job with it. Not seeing any of the weather, and there's not much to see, is there? Just a few wispy bits of fog. So just coming over Lake Hawea. Wanaka is below us to the right. So if we scoot past the co-pilot, can we see Wanaka down there? Just about. It's amazing, isn't it? The views, this part of the world. So that's Lake Hawea below us, stretching off into the hills. Okay. So we're at 10,000 feet, which means we can go beyond 250 knots. We could turn the landing lights off at this point. Yeah, it's somewhat unnerving, isn't it, when you're relying on lateral navigation, but you have no visual view of the route within the aircraft. So it's kind of that, it's from the era, well, it shouldn't really have this at all. This GPS system is not of its era. It would have been programmed very differently. The later models did have a flight management computer, but they would have looked nothing like this. It'd be fascinating. I know JustFlight said they were working on at one point. Whether they've given up with that until they've done the RJ100, I'm not sure. So there is a more modern version of the 146 coming. It's the Avro. Be interesting to see what happens with it. So can we see Matt Cook yet? Is that it out there? I think it might be. Right, we're going to start overspeeding soon unless I moderate the throttles. Tracking off for a bit. Right, I'm going to make a quick coffee before we get to CS HES. I'll be back soon. Okay, let's have a look, see where we're going. Big swig of coffee. Let's hope. We'll just turn the autopilot off. Let's hope the runway isn't completely iced in. Don't think there's anything in the way of a beacon either. So we're turning in slightly early, but so it's in this narrow part where this may all be iced over though. We'll see. Yeah, it's going to be in this area up here. So let's get down to 250 knots. Now, have we got any ice detect happening? No, there's no ice being detected in the atmosphere, which is good. Get the landing lights back on. As we dip in below 10,000 feet, we start managing this descent in. Thrust modulation system is on sync, which is good, following throttle number 1. Be primarily looking to get the visuals on the runway more than anything. Unfortunately, there's no radio beacons to work with, so we'll be using the natural landscape features. So we'll hug the right side of the valley looking for the fissures. So if we go for this first, just having a look at the map to see how this... Once we clear here, measure distance, 5 miles out, got the first mark. So altitude of the airfield itself is 2,000 feet, so 5 miles out we want to be 3,000 feet at least. So start descending to give ourselves 1,000 feet to drop, or 1,500 feet, so 3,500 feet once we go past that ridge. Luckily this aircraft has enormous spoilers, so if we need to lose speed in a hurry we certainly can, and if we need to descend in a hurry we can for the same reason. Okay, let's go for head tracking. Make it a bit more interactive on the way in so we can look at things quickly. If it becomes an issue we will switch it off. Just get the headphones sorted out on my ears. We can actually see the runway, we're not going to have any problems. I was just having to work out whether the runway would be fully obscured with snow, but we're looking good. Coming down through 7,000 feet. I think we're going to be absolutely fine, to be honest. sit ourselves up a little bit in the cockpit so we can see over the glare shield. So we are going to need to put the spoilers out to loosen speed so you can hear that happen. We'll throw the gear out as well to act as a more natural air brake. We're a bit higher than we want it to be, but we're not over that ridge yet. A few miles to go until we get there. 200 knots. I'm going to turn head tracking off because it's being annoying.
Speed checked below 205. Select flaps 18.
There goes flaps 18. Come off the spoilers now. We've got the flaps and the gear. Oh, the sound of the air on the flaps is incredible, isn't it? Okay, we're going full flaps very soon, so let's get rid of some speed. Right, full flaps. Gear is down. So we're going to skim the hillside here. Hopefully bring this in quite smartly. Can I see this from outside? Holding it just above 140 knots if I can.
Rain. Sink rate.
Remember, this doesn't have reversers, so we need to be careful about getting it on the ground fairly quickly so we can use both spoilers and wheel brakes.
Ground idle. Yellow and green spoilers. Brake pressure seen. 80
So just so
knots.
you can get to see this, the whole top of the wing lifts up. It's cool, isn't it? And we've done it. We've stopped with plenty of time. So spoilers can come off, flaps can go back up, and we just need to double back. So we made the first turning place. This went better than I thought it was going to. Like I said at the start, this thing lands on much shorter runways than it can take off. Need to turn the landing lights off. Should have had the strobes off as well by now, but I don't want to go and look overhead while I'm rolling. Again, in the real world there's two of you, which makes jobs like flicking switches while taxiing and doing other things a lot easier. So we'll pull in next to this Mustang. I think it's a Mustang, isn't it? There we go. Okay, so the APU stays on in the BAe 146. Therefore, you can switch the engines off without any major dramas. So we can literally just pull the levers on them.
Cabin crew, doors to manual and cross-check.
Obviously, if we want to play games with shutting down properly, we can. Otherwise, we can just say go and get the passenger stairs ready. So we're going to do the stairs as well. It's very cool, isn't it? And I believe the doors work in this one, so we can go wander. Oh, it's already opened. It's a bit naughty, wasn't it? We should have shut that before we took off. But yeah, all the doors and everything work if you've never seen this before. And there's the way of the airplane. So there you go, the BAe 146 at Mount Cook. Bit of an adventure with the stalling on the departure, but we learn something new every flight. So this aeroplane, maybe you take off, I'll have to look in the pilot operating handbook, maybe it is okay to fly it on full flap on takeoff, which would have given us a 20 knots more margin to fly that standard instrument departure. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.